This is a Film Stories original podcast.
Prescription products require completion of an online medication consultation with an independent healthcare provider through the LifeMD platform and are only available if prescribed. Subscription required. Individual results may vary. Additional restrictions apply at lifemd.com. Read all warnings before using GLP-1s. Side effects may include a risk of thyroid C-cell tumors. Do not use GLP-1s if you or your family have a history of thyroid cancer.
If you've struggled for years to lose weight and have given up hope, did you know you can now access GLP-1 prescription medications through LifeMD? LifeMD is now offering eligible patients online access to GLP-1s, the breakthrough prescription medication that can help you lose body fat and weight. Listen to what people are saying.
You just take your shot. It doesn't feel like you're on a diet. What I wasn't expecting it to do was to shut off the food noise. This was life-altering, and if I can do it, I feel like anybody can do it.
And here's the best part. Your insurance may cover 100% of the cost of your medication. So go to trylifemd.com to have your eligibility checked right now. Get started today at trylifemd.com. That's trylifemd.com.
So I don't know you're more
brain in a jar,
to believe
and
in
totally off the
than you
wall.
are in a wind tunnel.
You need to go back
I
a couple
can't
more
even
drafts.
get
This
into
is
the Jersey Devil part of it.
Oh my
doesn't
gosh,
make
guys.
sense.
Oh, hang on, guys. Hold up. We've got visitors here. We can't, air our dirty laundry in front of all these people.
Sorry.
Let's do this the right way, okay? Let's be civilized.
We'll try.
We'll take turns.
Okay.
Welcome to the X-Cast. The truth is in here. Today, we're going to be talking about some underrated episodes. As you can hear, we're a little bit riled up here. But I'm your host, Sarah Blair, and I've got Paige Schechter and Russell Hugo with me. And we're going to be civilized, right, guys?
Yes, we are.
We're going to try.
Yes? Try. Okay. We can do this. We're here today, welcome everyone, to discuss what we think are some episodes that may kind of get overlooked in season 1. They're ones that we enjoy watching. And typically, if you're doing a full rewatch or, something like that, you might skip these episodes. But we don't think that they should be skipped, right? We each have our own special reasons why we think these are episodes that need more attention. So, we're going to talk about the Jersey Devil. Russ is going to discuss why he thinks the Jersey Devil needs more attention. I chose Born Again. And Paige, you've got Roland. So, I know, on the XCast Basement Facebook group and all that, these are not the ones that we talk about the most. Or at all.
or they're talked about in negative terms.
Right. Exactly.
Like Russ's episode, Jersey Devil.
Hey. That's completely fair, Paige. Keep it up.
All right, so I was thinking a great way to go about this would be just to go in order of the way they aired on through the season. So I know, Russ, you've got the Jersey Devil first because it's third, fourth episode. So it's right at the beginning. Do you mind going first, Russ?
As long as I can hold back the tears when the attacks come my way. But I've got a lot of
We'll
deep
hold our
breaths.
punches until you've proven your case, okay?
Oh, Lord.
Will that be all right?
No, feel free to jump in at any time.
All right, Russ. Tell us a little bit about the basic episode and why you think that it deserves a little bit more recognition than it's getting.
Yeah, I wonder if we could go two different directions, and I'll let you choose which way you prefer. Maybe
right.
I could start with the summary argument and then kind of go through the pieces of what led up to that argument, and then you can criticize it, completely at any point, or we can start with the pieces and end with a summary argument more like a television courtroom. I don't know what you would prefer to do.
I think the first option sounds pretty good. Yeah, because in case, like, for any reason, somebody might not have seen it yet. Like, I don't know what world you might be living in, but,
Well, I'll still give them a summary of the episode, but and all the big argument. Okay, I can lead off with that, and then we can go through some of the details and debate.
Yes.
Friendly, healthy debate. So the Jersey Devil is one of the early episodes of season 1, as we talked about. And the basic premise, to start with the premise, then we'll go with the argument, is that there is a potential cryptozoological creature, or a crypto creature to save time, in the New Jersey woods in the cold open in 1947. Somebody is attacked. Then another person is attacked in the modern day, and Mulder finds out about it and goes out to investigate. Scully assists, and they find out basically it's a human. So maybe before I give my argument, what I was wondering is if either of you could present your criticisms of this episode and what it is about it that you think causes it to fall in the esteem of the average X-Files viewer.
Paige, do you want to go first? Do you want me to go
Come
first?
on, Paige.
I have my reasons.
Well, you go first, Sarah, and then
All right. Well, actually, to be quite honest, I kind of skipped this one because I thought that the case wasn't very strong, and I didn't feel like there was a lot going on with it. I mean, it wasn't very interesting, I guess. But then I rewatched it a few times recently, like on the big rewatch, and then for doing the Scully episode of the X-Cast, and I saw it in a new light, and I actually really like it now. I think it really shows a lot of Scully's character, and I liked getting to see a glimpse into her personal life. So that's why I actually probably will stop skipping this episode. But Russ, I'm sure you probably have some better founded ideas as to why we should do that. But personally, I don't dislike it as much as I used to.
It's very generous, and you're making my job a little easier, but I look forward to other nitpicking, Sarah, so I hope you can get a little more aggressive in the next round, a little more intense. We got to up the CNN ante. Paige,
well, you still have me, and I still don't like it. So
good, thank you.
I find it kind of bush league in every respect, in terms of the case, the way Sarah just explained it. The only thing I do like is the teaser, which when you get to that, I can comment more on. But I think the major problem I have with it is they do go into Scully's personal life, and that would be an X-File. But that's kind of also where this one loses traction, because if you're telling the fantastical tale of the X-Files and you want people to believe in something that's unbelievable, you can't really ground it by interspersing the hunt for this with Scully attending to a kid who's bumped his head or having dinner with a divorced super dad. And so that comes off as very, very awkward to me. Then there are like a billion searches for this Jersey Devil, and there's lots of running around. And there's some strange drop and rolls with Mulder and Scully, which don't seem to serve any other purpose except to look cool and sort of liven up the Dullsville proceedings.
But they do look cool, don't they?
They look.
Scully looks so cool.
But why
are they doing that? And I think Anderson actually did her role.
Why are they doing that?
Because they can.
And if you look when Mulder does the role and he gets up, he does like a primate gorilla double-fisted walk for a second. So it's kind of in keeping with the theme of the episode. There's a lot of metatextual layers and texture in those drop and rolls. But we're getting off track. I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that was it. My primary concern is just that her date and her life at this party is so un-X-Files-y, and it sort of serves to make what else we're watching seem like, and it's not a great case to begin with. I mean, we're talking about a guy Starts with this guy in the parks department, doesn't want to lose his pension. He's been working there 32 years and he doesn't have a pension. I mean, I can nitpick all over this thing.
Although maybe he does have a pension, he just doesn't want to lose it.
He doesn't want to lose. He should be retired after 32 years, but that's, that's so minimal. That's such a minimal problem here. Okay, so people are looking for this Jersey Devil, and we see kind of different looks at this actual being, but the one Mulder gets to look at is really good looking, and he actually gets more action than Scully does on her date.
That's sad. Poor Scully.
Those are all good points, and they actually tie into some potential flip side interpretations of all of that. But
all
your
right, Russ,
views,
go for it.
Paige, are dynamite. So, again, I was tasked with this wonderful albatross over my neck to try and defend this episode. And as a little bit of background, I started watching X-Files when it originally aired, starting with Deep Throat. So I have an affinity for season 1 and remember watching this episode, and can sum it up that I always enjoyed watching it, but was often disappointed in the ending and the resolution. But because I'm a big fan of Sasquatch and the concept of Sasquatch. So what I'd like to do for this episode, there are 2 different ways to look at it, potentially, and perhaps reappraise it. One is, if you look at it, let's first of all extract it from where it is in the order of episodes, and just think of it as an X-Files episode. Take away the human element of the creature and actually put in a cryptozoological creature. Because the Jersey Devil in folklore has nothing to do with Sasquatch or anything else. It's its own thing. But they keep talking about Sasquatch, so even the writers don't get the mythology right. But let's say, close our eyes and imagine we have Bigfoot, like Harry and the Hendersons or something in this episode. Would that make it more interesting for you? Is it simply the fact that there is not any supernatural or paranormal or cryptozoological stuff that weakens the case? I mean, that's not the only problem people have with this episode, but do you think that would greatly raise the episode's esteem in your eyes?
I think it could strengthen the case if it was written more that way.
And Sarah?
I didn't care much for the attitude of the officers. The one in particular, his name escapes me right now, but
the head cop?
Yes. He's all, this is our jurisdiction, and blah, blah, blah. I liked that Mulder and Scully were really, once they had it figured out that this was not necessarily supernatural, but there was they call them like a primitive Neanderthal or whatever, but once they established that these were people out living in the woods, and they were actually, they wanted to help them and study them, and I don't know how that might have turned out. It's like use these people as guinea pigs, but I mean, at least it might have benefited science in some way. And then the head cop was just, we've got to kill them because, whatever, wild animals, they're like, I think he says, like, what you would do to a rabid animal. And it's like, well, no, they're not rabid. They're just, trying to survive, and they don't know any better. So, but I think that's really what takes it down a notch in my mind, is that, the bad cop was just so bad.
That's a totally fair criticism. The especially keeps beating the drum home, and the motivation for the corruption to protect Atlantic City. In my mind, I'd never been to Atlantic City, but I would think a place like that would love to have a cryptozoological creature to boost tourism. I don't understand Mulder's argument that they're not going to play the slots. I mean, that's how you draw in the people, and that I really don't buy. But I did at least like the very end of the episode where they hang on the cop after they've shot the woman, and then he realizes, oh, this was a human, and he kind of, the actor at least, it's not necessarily, we don't know if it's in the script, but does give some balance, some humanity to the cop, where he seems to have some regret. And so I'll have to give him a little bit of credit there.
Yeah, and Scully's scathing look, that made me really happy at the end.
Scully
really
is...
appreciate that. She is, like, amazing. Yeah.
Well, and this is the great thing is she's... And I'll get into that, is this is very much Scully saving the day throughout on running the show. Being classic competent Scully. But
yes.
To move to the main argument and the main defense for this episode that I have is this. In the context of season 1, this episode, the fact that we have something that's continually hinting at something supernatural and then continues to whittle away. So it goes from Sasquatch or something potentially highly paranormal to Neanderthal to human. The mundanity, if that's a word here, this primes the audience that you can expect anything in the X-Files. So because this is only episode 5, by this time now, people can watch and go, oh, so it's not necessarily the case that every time I watch an X-Files, there's going to be a ghost or it's going to be aliens. Because they've already had the government technology and the rest, but that's still pretty out there science fiction to some degree. I mean, it's hypothetically more plausible. So what I think this does is I think this grounds the audience and tells them what the rules are for the show. Even if the show doesn't necessarily follow up on it, I think it's actually beneficial for that reason. It's sort of disappointing, but I think that disappointment can make other surprise paranormal twists in the viewer as the season progresses more satisfying and more rewarding because it's coming from a place where, oh, is this real? Is this not? It's strengthening that kind of ambiguity in the show.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I agree with that. Yeah.
That's an excellent point, and we'll have more episodes like this, and we won't like them.
Right. But see, I think that's one of the things that I do appreciate about the X-Files is that the strange and the out there, the spooky cases actually can have a logical explanation. And Scully is generally the one who finds it, which also makes me happy. I like the partnership in this episode because, Mulder is his dogged self and he just is relentless. He wants to find the answers to this case and he knows that the truth is out there. And Scully's like, we've got to be scientific about this. And, she's still trying to have a life at this point. She hasn't quite given up on that yet. But, and Paige, I can understand, your point of view about, how the Scully stuff kind of takes away from the case. But I think being so early in the show, I'm wondering if maybe they were trying to establish that maybe Scully still wanted to have a life, still could have a life, and, show her as something more than just the science part of it and more than just Mulder's partner. And maybe with, Fire a little bit later in the season where Phoebe Green comes in, maybe they were trying to kind of do the same thing with Mulder. I don't know. And then they realize, hey, these guys are, partners and they only need to be together. That's my shipper coming out. Sorry. But,
well, I think they sort of realized what my point was that it's, you're having a show about the supernatural and putting people on dates within that context doesn't work so well.
Yeah. But it does make a good contrast, though, because, while she's on this date and it's all wrong, you're like, hey, that's not right. She needs to be, figuring out this case. So I think it's a good way to, establish, hey, it's good to establish our character either way. And then, because if she wasn't on that date, she couldn't make that choice to go with Mulder at the end. And I think that choice is important, and giving her the opportunity to have that choice is important. So while it might take away from the case and might take away from the episode, I think it really was important and valuable to establish a clear choice for her to go with Mulder and choose him over having a life. Because, that's essentially what she's doing at the end of the episode when she's like, well, I could have gone to Cirque du Soleil, but I want to come look at, cryptozoological creatures with you, Mulder. So, I think that's why it's valuable. But it definitely doesn't really add to the case. You're right. So,
can I counter that argument?
Yes.
I think it actually does have a lot to do with the case. Now, this may not have been written into the script, but can you think of another episode when it would have been more appropriate to have Scully go on a date? And the argument I'm trying to make, and I could be crazy, is that there are multiple parallels running throughout the script. The way it opens with Mulder, and we'll kind of get into that, looking at the X-rated magazine, ending with looking at the photos. Also, the relationship between him, the obsession between him, and you mentioned, Sarah, and the forest woman. There's also strong parallels there with, even the ending quote that Scully brings up, which is, 8 million years out of Africa, and look who's holding the door. Now, it's not perfect. It's 1990. Oh, boy, I can't. Thank you.
Three.
Yeah, it is 3. You're correct, Sarah. Nice job. It's not perfect. And again, I may not be the right person to be saying this, but I think it's possible in its own flawed way to see this instead as and I think a lot of it's intentional, even if it's clumsy. The date, the interactions, some of that stuff is very clumsy, and we'll get into that potentially with her friend and the child's birthday party, but it's very much queuing up. Not so much, I think you're right that yes, it does say that Scully wants to be with Mulder, but I think the episode is more saying, giving Scully, it's allowing the character to see this is who she is and what she wants to do. I'm going to simplify it in kind of a dumb way, but she doesn't need to have kids. She doesn't need to fit the traditional role of a woman of her age to either be happy or be anything else. And as a character, and I think that kind of reinforces what comes later with Beyond the Sea and everything like that. So I find that the date itself, while it's a little uncomfortable, what they did well is they don't make the guy an over-the-top good guy. He's kind of obnoxious, but he's also doesn't over-the-top bad guy. He's just kind of neutral. And it gives Scully an actual legitimate choice to say, this is not what I need. And then Mulder also being very distant and remote. He is almost sort of acting like the forest woman in a sense. And then as Mulder's trying to save her, Scully is trying to save Mulder repeatedly through this episode. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is I think this, because of you have this woman in the forest who's essentially just a woman, and the parallels here was Mulder's obsession, and then Scully, this whole subtext is about evolution, and there's a lot of gender stuff in this, is a great episode in the first season. I can't think of a better episode to have this portrayal of Scully's backstory. And I think it needs to be established early on in the series to really show, Scully's defiance and strength as an individual against society's norms, which then, to repeat myself, is reinforced excellently in Beyond the Sea with the discussion with her father and her life choices.
Yes, that was great. Yeah, agree. Paige, what do you think?
Well, I definitely agree with the premise, and I have one for your parallel file because Mulder gets knocked over and she sits on him and sniffs, and he probably likes that. But how different is that from two people on a date kind of sniffing each other out? So there's one for your parallel file, but I still find it so incredibly boring. I fell asleep a bit during the conversation about it, too.
Oh, boy.
But I all your points are very salient. Everything makes sense, and you're right. Where else could you put this stuff in the season? There really isn't any other place. And maybe in 24 episodes of a season, you need to have these things. You need to have lulls, and they can't all be highs. They can't all be Beyond the Sea. So we're going to have some character development, and I agree with your point here that that's what we have here.
You're too kind, Paige. And I also want to add on my final, and then we'll go through some of the details really quick. I don't want to hog the whole show, but I want to get your perspectives on these. I do want to echo also, even though it's not perfect, I'm going to agree with Sarah in the sense that I think this is a really good shipper episode. Not even in the sense of if it is a shipper, but I think there's a lot of fun dialogue between the two. Some of it falls flat, but there's a lot of great moments that I think it's, even if you don't like the whole episode, it would be kind of a shame to skip some of the highlights of this Mulder-Scully interactions.
Yes. All right. Let's sum up this episode, and then we'll move on to Born Again.
Can I do a speed round really fast?
Absolutely.
Okay, so just want to mention really quick, I just started reading Darren Mooney's book, Opening the X-Files. If you haven't read it, it's phenomenal. I did not read the Jersey Devil section because I didn't want to cheat and steal anything, and everything he writes would be smarter than what I would say anyways, but he does mention the X-Files has a shortage of cryptozoological creatures. He says that in the beginning, and I completely agree. That's one problem. Okay, 1947, the opening, I was like, oh, that's Chuck Burks. Pretty fun. Who gets attacked by the guy who plays Chuck Burks gets attacked by the creature at the beginning. And then in the same episode, we get a proto Chuck Burks at the University of Maryland.
Yeah.
That's pretty fun. Okay, so there's some weird inconsistencies at the beginning. Paige, you had some things to say. The one thing is that they say it ate his leg, but then later says multiple limbs were eaten, and things get mixed up. But I found it weird that the creature ate the leg and just left the body there when the cave was nearby. That's a little weird. But the look of the search at the beginning, I thought it looked great. The warmth, a little bit of mist and all of that. Paige, what were you going to say? Sorry to keep talking.
Oh, no. I definitely agree. The teaser really has some kick to it. Maybe not so much where the guy disappears, but the police cornering whatever it is before the opening credits. And I know that's the first of like 14 searches in this episode, but it really, I want to keep watching.
Great. So I'm going to fly through these and just interrupt me. I'm going to try to get through them in 2 minutes so we don't put the listeners to sleep.
All right.
Scully's first power suit with the bright red salmon shirt. It's awesome. Mulder's story, including the opening shot and then looking at the other stuff, also hints at the end of Jose Chung's From Outer Space. There. And also Patterson PD Files, at a little fun reference to the Patterson Gimlin film. Okay, so let's go. I think that the Park Ranger and the Proto Burks, the four of them teaming up, it's fun. They're all a little, over the top, not, super deep written, but it's kind of fun to get their own sort of, quad squad doing stuff. We have a kid in a monkey mask who runs into a wall. People like that. Lots of great cheesy EDR. Dog eating a birthday cake. This is a good thing. FBI, perfect training for motherhood. I don't know if that falls. Bad. There's the mom shaming is a little over the top, but I think it again redeems it on the arc. What do you think about Mulder's old man suit? There. Oh, another good thing. I like any TV episode that has lots of burning barrels on streets, and this one works here. And I wonder if this is the first use of the Snow's, like that magical flute cue that's used throughout the series. The
yes
thing.
Yes.
And then also the hey voice. I mean, these are constant motifs, and they started here, so we got to give a little bit of respect. And, okay, I'm trying to wrap this up fast, everybody. I think also the first encounter in the homeless camp was a lot more effective when it was muddier and I saw it on an analog TV. In HD, it's fine, but I think when we're rewatching this now, it loses a lot of the edge. On the other hand, most of the forest chase scenes, even at the end, I think the wide shots look fabulous. And I don't think this episode gets enough credit for how good it's not overall, is not directed fantastically, but there are some really wonderful moments. Okay, I could keep going, but I think I'm going to stop wasting people's time.
No worries, Russ.
One other thing. Sorry. For the shipper ends is you got that over-top fan service with Mulder's abs and the ambulance. And you got to give the credit that he's injured and throughout the rest of the episode he plays the injury. That doesn't always happen in the X-Files. Somebody gets beat up in the next scene, but he's throughout the entire thing are going. Okay, and also the show has non-sexualized, but it's also not intended to be grotesque nudity on television at the time. And that is pretty decent. And I'll finally end with Scully's red blazer is fabulous at the very end. So, this episode is not as bad as I think people think it is. Case somewhat closed.
Let's go ahead and talk about Born Again, because that's the next episode. It comes right before Roland. So, Paige, you get the honor of wrapping this up. But, okay, so Born Again originally aired in 94, April 29th, 94 is the 22nd episode. So we've got the Jersey Devil at the beginning, and then we go through the whole season, and then we've got Born Again, Roland, and then the season finale, Erlenmeyer Flask. So we've got the last 2 episodes. So I think, okay, so Born Again was also one that I kind of like skipped over and, wasn't too interested in until I watched it again recently. It's about like this little creepy girl who has something going. They know something's going on with her. She's not acting the way normal kids do with, her mom says that she doesn't laugh, she doesn't have any friends, she sees a therapist and she defaces and dismembers dolls, and she's just generally not a happy-go-lucky kind of kid. So she ends up, the show opens with her and they think she's lost, and she goes into this police station. This police officer finds her. It's Janice from Friends, if y'all watch Friends too. They go in and she enlists the help of another fellow police officer and leaves the little girl, Michelle, in the room with this police officer while he's trying to figure out where she belongs and how to get her help. And then he crashes through the window. What even is happening? Surprise. They don't know how it happened. A 60-pound kid is not going to, throw this guy through the window. He's 200-pound cop. So, of course, Mulder and Scully come to investigate. But basically, the plot turns out that there's this whole conspiracy between these 4 cops. One of them was killed in this Chinatown gang-style murder. And guess what happened to him? He had his arm cut off and his eye gouged out, which is the exact same thing that this little girl was doing to these dolls. So the rest of the cops who were involved in this end up getting killed, all except for Charlie Morris's, who was the original cop that was killed. His partner is the last one alive. And not only that, but to add to the drama, you've got Charlie Morris's widow married to his former partner. It's super drama going on. So that's pretty much my argument as to why this episode is awesome. I don't know if that is convincing everybody, but we can definitely talk about it. I'm happy to rebut all of your reasons as to why, you think this episode is undeserving. But Paige, what are your thoughts on this? Why do you not like this episode?
I do like this episode. Sorry.
Yeah?
I'm already on this. Although, for years and years, I always get the title of this and Young at Heart confused. And I think this is that episode and Young at Heart is this episode. But I think I finally know Born Again is Born Again. I really like this episode, and it reminds me of some other things. There was, in 1993, there was a film called Heart and Souls with Robert Downey Jr., and he's helping 5 people who died prematurely get a chance to fix something that went wrong in their lives. But then again, it's kind of Poltergeist meets Firestarter. So it's got a lot of pop culture points that you could... Plus, it's a procedural. It's kind of NYPD Blue there. It's about 75% procedural, actually. So if I know there are probably a lot of people who don't like this episode, and it's because it's not really an X-Files. It's more like an episode of NYPD Blue minus nudity, which I guess the nudity was in Russ's episode. So that was covered there.
I am neutral on this one.
Yeah.
I think all of your comments are excellent, and I can't really argue against them. There are some strengths in it. I think the casting and the performance by the little girl, that can go wrong really easily, but in general, as we know, the X-Files has a pretty great track record with child actors. And I think she did an excellent job. And in general, the cast is pretty good. And I do find some of the set pieces that even kind of border on comical really enjoyable, like the bus scene with I believe the tie that gets caught in the door. The whole thing, that whole idea of like, let's write this and do it, is with a scary girl staring out the window of the bus. That's pretty fun.
Yeah, it's totally creepy. And in my book, it's really hard to beat creepy kids. Like, if there is a creepy child in that set, I mean, you've got the Calasari creepy kid episode, and this one,
and
there's
Eve, and
yes, Eve,
and Conduit,
right? So, and those are all great episodes. Those are ones that people love. So, you know, if you've got creepy kid in it, like ups the point level there in my book. And, you know, Michelle does a great job at being super creepy. So,
which is amazing, because I looked at her IMDb, and her name's Andrea Libman.
Yes.
And she was in like My Little Pony and Strawberry Shortcake and Care Bears. And Michelle Bishop doesn't resemble any of these things. She's just so good. I find her compelling. This kid is really compelling. And I don't know how the X-Files always did it, but they, you know, there was never like, this kid is awful. They're always great. They're always contributing and making it more interesting.
Yes, absolutely.
I think some kids are a little more, they're good, but they're a little more forced, a little more campy.
Yeah.
And trying to be creepy. She just seemed naturally just was able to dial it back and just kept the tone right on the money.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I know the scene when she's doing the regression hypnosis, that had to be a tough scene to nail down, but she really did a great job. I mean, you really got, you know, her fear, and yeah, she did a great job with that scene. And
tell everybody your insight.
So
yes.
Yeah, so when I was watching this episode on my phone with my headphones in, because my kids were watching, you know, kid shows. So I had to they commandeered the big TV. So I had the headphones in, and then when Mulder's replaying the tape of her regression hypnosis, it sounds like there's like a man's voice, just kind of an undertone with Michelle's voice on the recording. So it almost sounds like, because she is supposed to be the reincarnation, or they weren't totally clear on this, but they insinuated strongly, and they mentioned reincarnation. But we don't know necessarily if it was just that the spirit of Charlie Morris was trying to inhabit Michelle's body to get his revenge on this conspiracy, because the cops had promised that they had money or something to do with his death that they got, and you know, they promised to wait 9 years or 10 years, and it's coming up on 9 years. So before they escape with the money or whatever and get the money. So they had it in a hiding place. And anyways, but yeah, it sounds like if you go, and I don't know if it was just because I have my headphones in, or, you know, if I'm imagining things, but it did sound like there was a little bit of a male voice undertone. So almost like his voice was coming through on the recording with her voice. So I thought that was a nice touch. If it's there, you listeners, you gotta go back and watch and listen with your headphones on, just to make sure that I'm not completely nuts and imagining things.
Well, I did watch, and during the replay, when Mulder is replaying the tape of what happened, yeah, the tape seems to have caught that, and that's a brilliant way of adding to the upping the ante.
Right? It's really creepy. And it's not something that because I've watched that episode many times over the years, and I never caught that before, which is one of the great things about the X-Files. I like being surprised by it still. Even after all these years, I still find things surprising. So I thought that was a really nice, creepy touch that added a lot of authenticity to the episode. And, it's just a fun episode, really. Plus,
yeah, it's great. This poor girl who has done nothing to no one is being tortured by a guy who was killed and wouldn't take a payoff. He wouldn't take the payoff, and he got killed by his friends. And now this girl is haunted by him so much that she's dismembering dolls and being antisocial. But
and they've got her on Thorazine and like all this crazy stuff, that poor child.
Here's the question. If he's able to stop this when his wife asks, please stop, then how come he's torturing a little girl, the guy who wouldn't take the payoff and got murdered by his friends? It's like a little doesn't compute in that manner.
The one thing that does bother me, not to discount my own episode here, but it does bother me that I never caught a reason as to why he chose her. They're not related. Was it just some random girl that happened to be born at the same time he died?
Yeah, that's why it seems like Heart and Souls to me, because that's the premise they use. So I guess that was the point there.
Right. So, but I really liked Maggie Wheeler, the girl who played the detective, who also played Janice on Friends. But I felt like there's not many episodes where you get a police officer or local officer who is like, I don't know what's going on here, but this is definitely weird and something is going on and it's not normal. And I felt like she was very realistic. There's sometimes you get in the Jersey Devil where you get somebody who's so over the top anti-supernatural, or you've got somebody who's like, I totally believe this. It's like one range or the other. But, this cop, she played it really straight, and it worked really well, I thought, because she was just kind of like, I've seen crazy things in my job. Stuff happens, and I can't explain it, but something's off about this little girl here, and we need to figure out what it is. And I really liked how, like you said, Paige, it was like a really good procedural where, they did the legwork to find out what was going on. And a lot of it was her character going through these old files that were, 10 years old and more to really figure out and uncover this mystery. Because minus the reincarnation stuff, it really was just a plain up, straight up mystery. So I really appreciate that about the episode. Russ, what do you think about that?
All good points, except I would note you did mention the Jersey Devil. You tried to throw it under the bus. Yeah, the cop was over the top, but don't forget the park ranger, who is basically pseudo-law enforcement, and I think does do a pretty even-keeled job. Side note, according to Wikipedia, Maggie Wheeler, you may all know this, was dating Duchovny at the time.
No.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
We all know how much he loved getting his girlfriends on the show.
Well, hey, good old nepotism. One thing I wanted to throw as an attack and to see how you can handle this. One issue I have with the script is the 10-year timeline. I'm not sure the justification is provided, especially when I think by the time two of them are dead, and it's like, oh, we still got to wait the other year to take the money. Why? Why, or why not just leave and then come back for the money? Why do you have to stay in the city? That whole conceit, it's a minor one, but it does weaken the script for me.
A little bit.
Could it be because they're trying to stay above suspicion, and if they took off, everybody would kind of realize it was them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like that in the fan edit version that you and Sarah will be producing very soon. That'd be good.
Right after the fan version of Jersey Devil with more Sasquatchiness.
Yeah.
More squatching! More
Mulder
squatching!
out squatching. Yeah.
Yeah. We just do his After Effects and put fur on top, and we're done. Little ADR.
Also, I gotta mention origami. We just started doing origami this summer with the kids in my house. So we're gonna try to, I don't know, maybe I'll make my own origami Noah's Ark. We'll see. But anyway,
that show has one of my favorite images, and it's when Mulder comes in and looks at the fish tank, and he's kind of like, you know, that's one of my favorite images from all of the shows ever. Just ingrained in my head.
Well, you know how Mulder loves his fish tanks. There you go. All right, Paige, Roland, let's do this. Convince us, because I need some convincing on this one.
Okay, roll it on Roland.
Roll it on Roland.
So, the 23rd show of the first season, the penultimate episode, and it first aired on May 6, 1994. And the premise is that scientists at an aeronautics lab are dying under mysterious circumstances, and the agents are kind of investigating, of course, who did it, and it seems like a mentally challenged janitor is somehow in the mix. So that's where we start from, and I think the teaser there is another one of the great ones. We had some really good ones in the 3 episodes we picked, because Roland's cleaning the floor and he moves out of range, and then the scientist flies by and goes splat, and then Roland moves back in the frame and he's mopping the other way, and you just kind of want to know what's going to happen next. There are a lot of
that image of the scientists out of my head. Like it makes me laugh every time I see it. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
You know, if you're an X-Files fan for any length of time, you've probably watched the gag reels, and I keep thinking of the sound effect they have attached to that in the gag reel whenever I'm watching the episode. It's like whoop, you know, whenever somebody goes flying by, whoop. Which is, it's not as good as Russ singing earlier, but, you know, that's my contribution there.
There you go.
So,
what's singing? What's...
You were doing some kind of sing-songy singing before.
Oh, about the Mark Snow music cues. That was really embarrassing. And
I thought you were great.
Paige, your lies are like ambrosia. Keep going.
Oh, all that really nice fighting gone to waste.
I got some punches to throw at you, Paige.
Me too.
All right. Well, give me a chance first.
All right, go for it.
Sure. So there are a lot of different ways that an episode can be underrated, and I think Roland covers a lot of them. It's a nice little mystery. It puts our heroes in their wheelhouses. Scully's going to detail the science, and Mulder's going to make his wild theories that turn out to be true. But most of all, it has an incredible guest performance. And there have been so many phenomenal actors who've come in for one episode. You know, CCH Pounder and Lily Taylor got nominated for Emmys. Peter Boyle, of course, deservedly won for Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose. And then there are others like Brad Dourif and Robert Wisden and Nick Chinlin, Steve Railsback, Tom Noonan, and Charles Nelson Riley. And they're all really widely regarded for their contributions. And then there were more. There's Doug Hutchison and Pruitt Taylor Vince and Bryan Cranston and Michael McKean and Carrie Hamilton. And one of the ones who tends to get overlooked is Jelko Ivanek. And it really shouldn't, because it's a tremendous performance. It gives the episode a lot of gravitas it wouldn't otherwise have. He plays the victim. He plays the bad guy. And what a feat that must have been. Can you imagine? You're coming into work for like a week or so, and you have to fully develop this character and all the characteristics. He's got to nail the savant aspect of Roland, but then he's got to bring in this other thing where he's being controlled by his brother, and he has to go to these really emotional places in manic rages, and it's almost hard to watch him do these things, and I wonder if that's one of the reasons why it's under the radar and it makes people, doesn't make people uncomfortable. So what do you two think of that? Do you think that might be one of the reasons why?
Yes. I mean, I think he does give a fantastic performance. You're right about that. Absolutely. I mean, we literally, in the episode before this, just got a mind control villain who's controlling this little girl's actions and mind and killing people through psychic ability. And then we've got Roland, where kind of the same thing is happening again. I mean, he is a twin, which is not technically reincarnation, but his twin brother is controlling him from this cryogenesis thing. So it's still his consciousness overtaking Roland and his brother. And, I mean, I guess you get points for having an actual connection that they were twins. So that makes more sense than Born Again. It's just some random little girl. But, I mean, we've already got Born Again. So do we really need Roland? Tell us why we need to have Roland, Paige.
Oh, well, we definitely need to have Roland. Because, we need extra mega suck power. Now, okay, I know David Nutter, one of the early directorial powerhouses on the show, he said this was his least favorite of his 6 episodes from the first season, even though he was really pleased with Ivanik's ability to sell what he thought was weaker material. But what we have here, and this is so key, it's as key as some of the points that Russ was making earlier. We need to understand and appreciate and empathize with both sides of what Mulder and Scully bring to their investigations. So if Scully is saying something scientific, we just don't want to discount it with Mulder's theory. We need to be able to appreciate what she's saying and go, yeah, maybe that's true, instead of jumping right into the Mulder ship of, usually his far out guesses are correct. But she gives us so much of the science and the details on the twins fertilized by a single sperm and damaged chromosomes. And that's what we need in this show. We need a balance so that it's not all Mulder, so that what her contribution helps resolve the case as much as his far out guesses.
I mean, we always need more Scully. I'm always for more Scully. So that makes a lot of sense for sure. But one thing that really bothers me about this episode, and Russ, I don't know if you agree with me here, but I can't say that I've ever been in a wind tunnel here. I mean, well, no, that's not true. I did do indoor skydiving one time I did it, and never again. I went into this tunnel. It's like this big circular room. I don't know if you guys have ever been indoor skydiving, but you go and it's just like this mesh wire thing that you step on. It's kind of like a trampoline, but the wires are like really thin and they're about an inch apart. And this humongous fan underneath you starts spinning to blow the air so you float up in the air like you're skydiving. So I know what it's like to be in a wind tunnel, but I was paying close attention, and you've got this fan in the side of the wall, but there's all this wall space around it. So I couldn't understand why they wouldn't just go climb into the corner of the room on the same wall as the fan. And, why can't they just curl up there and not get sucked into the fan? Why do they have to run straight across from it and grab onto this mesh and then get sucked into the fan? Like, that's what I would do. I don't know. Is that crazy to think that's possible? Or I don't know. I've never been inside the room with a jet engine before.
If you're looking at it from a logic point, every single episode we watch is going to get beat down. I'm going to go with they were disoriented. They went running. They grabbed onto something. And then from there, they could not, they couldn't move to the side of the room. They were kind of stuck where they were. Hold on or die. Or hold on and die. So they were disoriented. Now,
okay.
I have some more points to make, but you're more willing to believe that some unforeseen psychokinetic thing is going on the bus where we actually don't see anyone pressing the pedal or closing the doors, but you believe that. But the wind tunnel with extra mega suck power, she just doesn't believe.
I do believe that there's mega suck power. I feel like, if you're sitting in the corner on the same wall, if you're going to get sucked anywhere, you're going to be sucked into the wall and, like, maybe curl up, and you can probably still breathe if you, like, turn your back around, right?
They couldn't get there because it was already on. There were already
But he was at the computer right next to it.
There were forces pushing. All right, stop trying to beat it.
It's creating a vacuum, just like space.
Okay.
Like in those movies where you get sucked out.
Yeah, everybody's always getting sucked out.
Like Paige said, it's mega suck power. This is a well-known.
I said extra mega
understanding
suck power.
in science.
Extra mega suck power.
Even more. Yeah, I mean that can do so much.
All right.
So much.
I'll believe that. As long as, like, yeah. Like, maybe their coat would have gotten sucked in and, yeah. Sure.
Well, I have more points to make, but I want to hear some of Russ's points first.
Yeah, Russ.
Oh, boy. So, my criticism of the episode is that it is two things that don't mesh quite as well as they could. And you hinted at this, and that we have a very excellent performance by Ivanek, but it's you got to get extra credit because it could so closely be very problematic in an ethical sense, but he still seems to do, I think, a fairly sensitive portrayal. But does that concept in his portrayal is matched with an insane B-movie 1950s subplot about a frozen brain in the jar who is killing off other mad scientists in a giant wind tunnel. My thought, and since I'm supposed to be attacking, I guess, I'm supposed to be the bad guy, why this should have been two different scripts. They could have done something like The Field Where I Died, something more, I think, tonally calm and consistent, with the actual character of Roland in a different plot, and then go over the top and do something really nuts and campy with the B-movie brain in the jar subplot. And I think because a lot of the preceding stories are so restrained with life after death, revenge stories, and there's a couple scenes where it is campy. You got the sucked into the wind blade, you've got the ice, the frozen shattering scene, that stuff. Play that up, but trying to mix that with everything else, it's a really tough balance. When I walk away, I'm not sure what to think about the episode. Should be more fun and more dramatic, but separate.
I sort of like it for that reason. I mean, wouldn't a B movie have a character like Roland in it? Like, usually it would be a straight waspy kind of man, but wouldn't a B movie be greater if the force against it was more complicated than just the most good-looking guy in town?
I think that's a great point. I'll give it to you if then the B movie aspect of it was amped up more.
Wow, okay.
Because then let's play up the contrast. It's right now too much in the middle of the road to where it's just like, should this be mixing? Should this not be mixing? And I think your idea there, if we really go B-movie and really continue and keep that core thing, I would like that. I think that's there. I think that's my issue, is that it's too milquetoast. Mm-hmm. But I like that thought.
What if it had been black and white and had Cher in it?
Even better.
Well, now I have a question for you both. Okay, Mulder he makes like one joke this episode. I don't think they'll be performing this experiment on Beekman's World. And I think it's because he really feels for the character of Roland. Now, does Mulder fall somewhere on the autism spectrum? Because he really identifies rather deeply with Roland's obsessiveness, and maybe, like, in the most mild form, does he fall somewhere along there?
I'm not qualified to answer this.
Yeah.
I'll pass that on to Sarah. It's a good question, but I'm going to back up.
But I'm not really sure.
I'm wondering if at least, okay, we're not saying Mulder falls there, but at least the person who constructed this script might have had that in their mind.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah, it is.
And I mean, he's got his photographic memory, which, doesn't necessarily mean anywhere on the spectrum, just for that reason alone, but he does tend to obsess over things quite a bit, and that's an interesting point.
Time for an essay, Paige.
There you go, Paige.
It's something that really struck me while I was watching it again.
Yeah.
So, Arthur Grable, the brother of Roland, died in a car crash. His head was cryogenically frozen afterward. This is kind of the X-Files ahead of their time again, because we all know it was done rather controversially to Hall of Fame baseball player Ted Williams. His head and body were stored in liquid nitrogen. So, once again, the X-Files breaking new ground. Oh, at the time, it was something, it was probably read in a magazine by somebody working on the show. Hey, let's work this into it. Now, at some point, Scully says she has an older brother and a younger brother, and that was, what? And they're still figuring out the backstories there, even at the end of the first season.
But isn't Charlie her younger brother? Wasn't Scully the youngest?
You're the Scully expert.
Aha, yeah. Yeah, I know. I know for sure. I thought it was order of Bill and then Melissa, right?
And she was young.
And then, was it Scully and then Charlie, or Charlie and Scully?
We're just going to get
Dana.
ripped for this in the chat room.
I know. Fans, come and correct us. Yeah.
Yes. Maybe an aeronautics lab isn't the best place for the working world to be politically correct. If he can't enter a 4-number combination to get into a room, it probably isn't safe for Roland to be on the premises. But clearly, nepotism was involved here.
Oh.
So there's
plus that guy was extra mean.
And the guy was extra mean, yes.
Yeah.
So with Mulder being so serious and interested in Roland, it falls to Scully to take up some of the humorous slack. And she does it with sort of limited success. I think comparing one of the bodies to a fudgesicle is a notch in the funny column. But does this pitch somehow end with a way for me to lower my long-distance charges? Maybe not so much. So she did fairly well on that, I'll say.
Oh, I'm doing the Scully facepalm thing right now.
And then I'm going to give you, to wrap up, I'm going to give you my favorite line from, I do a rewatch blog with my sister called Sibling Cinema, and she wanted to know why the brother, the dead guy, the frozen dead guy, was so violently against Roland having a relationship with Tracy in the house that they both stay at. And there were a number of possibilities. Would she distract him from the business at hand? Yes. But maybe it's just because he had a bad case of freezer burn.
Oh, but thank you. You'll be here all week. All right. Well, I think that about sums it up for us. We appreciate you joining us. Where can we find you guys online?
Oh, very rarely. I have a Twitter account, which I read like Xcast posts, and that's about it. But if you want, it's RL Hugo, Hugo, with a W at the end to throw a little curveball.
All right. And Paige?
Okay, my sister and I, as I mentioned, do the Sibling Cinema Rewatch on Blogger. We're sibling_cinema on Twitter. We're on Facebook, Tumblr, Instagram, Pinterest, and me as myself, I'm always in the Xcast basement.
All the places, right?
Thanks for making me feel lazy. Lazy-er. Yeah.
X-Files. We want to hear what you think about these so-called underrated episodes, and let us know how we did on arguing our points. Let us know if you watch these episodes and see them in a new light, since we have, gone over them a little bit and tried to argue our case. I hope we did a good job. You can let us know via Twitter at @the_X_cast, or via our Facebook group, the X-Files Basement Fan Group, or if you want to get any of the episodes early or hang out with us behind the scenes of the Xcast, you can join our Patreon, which is patreon.com/thexcast. So we hope you'll check that out. Consider becoming a donation member. And we really appreciate you taking the time to listen to us and hanging out with us. Maybe, you'll give these episodes a watch the next time you turn on the X-Files. So, until next time, everyone, trust no one.
The Xcast, an X-Files podcast, is produced and presented by Tony Black, alongside a dedicated group of podcasters and X-Files fans. You can find us on Twitter at the Xcast, and on Facebook if you type in the Xcast, or at our group X-Files Basement, an Xcast podcast fan group, where you can continue the discussion about all things Mulder and Scully. If you want to support the Xcast further, you can now subscribe and become a patron of the show on Patreon. On Google, just type patreon.com/the Xcast. That's Patreon. You'll see all of our tiers, subscription options and perks, which include early access to episodes, bonus content such as commentaries on X-Files episodes, access to a patron chat zone, and even appearing on one of our patron roundtable discussions. We would appreciate any support you can give the show, so just go to patreon.com/the Xcast to find out more. Our title music is provided courtesy of Will A, who you can find on Twitter at IamWillAYE.